welcome to Max channel. So, previous video was the purchase of the AVP cheapest full-size ATX case from Amazon, the P27 Storm or whatever, the one with the couple of questionable decision choices the designer made of it, some of which could be cheaper, some of which could be more costly. Probably more in the costly division, but you know, it was £23. If it was 25 and it corrected, there was a couple little features, would have been awesome as a budget case. Anyway, today I'm going to do a time-lapse, well, mostly time-lapse build of shoving a 8350 AMD processor into it, and there's going to be a couple of little snaps here and everywhere because I've got a GPU on order from CEX. Yes, not eBay, because eBay just did not have what I wanted for the cheap prices. My main rig, as an example, uses the 1070 from Nvidia. The one which I've ordered for, quite frankly, 20-something pound, in fact it was about the same cost as this case here, is a GTX 570. So it's just 5 generations behind. Can't be too bad. 1.2 gigabyte of VRAM. Perfectly fine for whatever game came out during the lifespan of Windows XP. The 200 watts might be a bit of a problem with the airflow in this case, but anyway, like I said, I'm going to do a time lapse. So if you just want to skip some of it or that, or slow it down, or whatever you fancy pausing it. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask. Anyway, let's get down to the building of it. First off, let's get the part which confuses most people. No, this motherboard is not a Corsair 6 Hero, I'm afraid. No. What actually is inside of here is sacrilege. It's a gigabyte motherboard. Before you ask, yes, I have just grounded myself prior to starting this video. It's quite easy actually. All you do is you touch your computer case, it grounds. Just don't shove a motherboard on the carpet. No, don't do that. Anyway, this is the Gigabyte GA970A DS3P, which is absolutely no use to Mano Beast for overclocking, but it's perfectly fine to undervolt a little bit. Comes with the ultra durable capacitors, which is fine. This thing here's had about 6 years worth of use on it, and with the AMD processors still already in there, if you really want, lift up. If you have one, you grab it, and just point out, there it is. You do not squeeze it down. Whatever you do, if you're squeezing it down, something's going really wrong. So, standard motherboard with 2 USB 3 ports on it. It's got the front USB header, all the usual things, 6 SATAs. It's got 2 PCI Express lanes, which might come in handy, maybe not. 2 PCIs and 2 PCI X1s and standard 4-pin, and you know, use the typical non-frills situation. Now, this next decision might come a bit of a strange one for Windows XP, because most people know Windows XP 32-bit can't use more than 3.75 gigabyte of RAM, or whatever it is, less than 4. In my particular case, I got a stick here which is 8. And I got another stick which is 8. Now, I could just get away with just putting something in there that happens to be DDR3, in this particular case, 1866 megahertz. I'm going to put both in for the dual channel for the processor. Even so, that from 16 gigabyte of RAM, I can only use 4. The limitation of Windows XP. Sure, I could put a 64-bit operating system from Windows XP in, but it's limited questionability with its reliability on it. I do have to have the original backplate with the FX stick on it, so I couldn't put an FX stick onto this case lock, you know. But it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And for cooling for this machine, I have got a Corsair IAO, which has had many years of use, and I'm hoping it's not been leaking. I hope it still works, because there's a lot of heat I'm going to have to dump through this thing. I'm going to do it as a push-pull configuration. with two of these doodles, two NZXT fans, which I would admit already right at this point are not the most powerful fans in the world. The LED, so that will improve the design of the case, it will light up, but it will definitely not exactly help towards. Now I've got 4 of these fans. The case itself has mounting spots with 1 in the front, 1 at the rear. So push-pull plus 1 spare. That 1 spare, I might have to do something with it, because I have a distinct feeling the case airflow will not be particularly great. Next, power supply. Modular power supply from iCute. Isn't it just cute? It's had a bit of a life behind it. In fact, the sticker which tells me exactly what wattage it is not on here. But I do believe I've never really bought anything below 450 watts. I'm using 350 with the configuration here, but I'm very sure this fan will be power supply will be perfectly adequate for the job. If not, it will explode. It is modular, one of the weirdest modulars going, because it has Molex connectors on here. 24-pin cable, if you're thinking it looks a bit taped together, it is. Because the original cable, as you can imagine, has a power supply, a bit short to reach the top of a motherboard. I don't understand why power supply manufacturers make a cable that is not long enough to route, or not even long enough to reach from the power supply to the thing itself. Hard drive wise, let me think. Hard drive wise, because I'm just going to put 2 operating systems on here, is a Western Digital Green Power. I put LOL on it simply because this here came from a Virgin TV box, 160 gigabyte. Yeah, that wasn't going to film much TV programs. Next comes a bit of a questionable, complicated one. Now, I have got a DVD drive here, perfectly fine, but it's IDE. Yes. Some of the more skilled people of you will realise there's a complication behind that one. And that complication is this motherboard here does not have IDE on it. To that problem, there's always a cheap-ass solution you may have lying around somewhere. There's this PCI X1 slot which happens to have an IDE connect on it. I don't currently have any spare SATA DVD drives. Most people just don't bother buying them anymore, quite frankly. Everyone's going for Steam games, download games, this, that, and everything. Normally it's more hard drive space more important than anything else. And then coming down to the point of Windows XP and power the resistance is a sound card. Because, you know, we're going backwards in time. Chances are the VAE Duda Realtek chip sound thing here will probably work. And this is one to point out. Sound cards during the early 2000s were more important than they are today. These days, they're not particularly important. My personal rig here relies on the Sound Blaster Z series cards. I'll explain this one in a second. In my case, I have the driver disc for both of this card. I have a remote control, so anyone who follows Creative know automatically what I'm going to be using. I have one of these Sound Blaster FXIs, and this is not just any version. This is the Platinum FXI Fatality, or what it is. Fatality. You might notice there's a funny weird cable attached to it. That's because for some reason Creative makes sound cards that you can't connect to the front header of your computer, which made absolutely no sense. It had a proprietary stupid thing, but you can get off eBay a converter cable, and there's hot snotted onto it. A cable connect the sound card to the next port, which is this doodah, front panel thing. Yes, FXI Fatality Edition. I've had this for many, and I could continue it on for many years. Very reliable sound card. It does work in Windows 10. Surprisingly enough, Creative did keep up the drivers going long enough I mean, you can get away using a Windows Vista disk, but in this case I'm using a Windows XP. And yes, the remote control still works. Who would have guessed? Now, to the problem of testing this machine, to actually make sure it works, I'm having to use a graphic card that will definitely predate many things. And surprised enough, you could put it into a Windows XP, Windows 10 machine, and it will still work. This, looking at the cooler, you know automatically this is not powerful. This is a GeForce 2 MX 400 with 64 megabytes of video RAM. Awesome. And a VGA slot. Yeah. So, what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to pause this, change the camera angle, and start with a time-lapse build. Because I can. Okie dokie. Okay, so I've pulled the front thing off, which is quite easy to do. And wow, that makes it even lighter. It's quite simple to do, but it's actually quite hard to do. Well, it's not actually hard to do. This one didn't have any screws along the sides. This had squeeze your fingers in, pinch it. Once you get one corner off, the whole lot just came off. So, questionable reliability on that one. But at this point, I also spotted what I did with the front video USB cable. It's just simply this cable going straight to a port. Nothing special. They didn't do a relay off to it. But who cares? It's got a USB 3 port on it. That, quite frankly, won't get used. Unless, of course, I'll replace it with something that actually does have a working... Oh, the USB 3 might actually still work on this board. But no point because of Windows XP. Because it would be like, what is this? Right, anyway, let's get down to it. I'm going to quickly unscrew the fan that is never going to get used. Holy Jesus and Christ. That wasn't even tight. It wasn't even in properly. Never mind. I'm going to take the fan off. If you wonder why I'm taking the front panel off, the reason for that is because I need access to the screw mounts to put the front fan on. And in my previous video I said, yes, it's fan filtered with mesh. Well, you know what's the funny thing about that? I don't think airflow relies on that mesh. I said, oh, the mesh is not replaceable. At least it's got some mesh to fan filter. No, it does not. Do you know why it does not? Oh yeah, this is the 4 holes I meant with fan attachment. That's it. For airflow for the front. You know what I meant with that? So I looked at this filter thinking, yeah, air needs to go through here and it's got a bit of a mesh. Which is true. Except for, I didn't realise this slot underneath here, so it is going to be partly come through there, or mostly unfiltered from there. Oh dear. Yeah, man. We'll just have to keep in mind not to run it for ages. Anyway, let's get down to the point of putting the rear bracket on. Typical situation of a rear bracket is just as simple as this. Plop, plop, plop. Right, let's re-ground myself. Touched all sorts of stuff. I'll do. Put my hand in some dust. Why not? So, typical motherboard setup. Yep. It's happy with it. We'll break out some of these extra breakouts. That'll be fine. And I'm looking at this right now and I'm thinking, do I put a power supply in now? That'd be fine. So let's use some of these included screws they're giving us. If you need a longer screwdriver, why not? If you ask personally, I like this doing the very middle screw and never tighten up too much. Just screw it in so it's in. And that's generally enough. I'll be given different screws. Yes, they have. Who would have thought? What the hell are these screws for then? There is actually a difference. When you get a case like this here, and you happen to get a bag of screws, yes, there is screws designed for the motherboard standoffs and the screws which are not. And I did that very mistake a second ago. Yeah, it will have like a flat head, but a narrowish thread on them. I just tried sticking a screw that might be for a 2.5 SSD. Generally speaking, if you got the budget to have SSDs, chances are you won't be buying this case. But yeah, Oh yeah, I did see time lapse, so chances are that I'm going to stop waffling anytime soon, and there'll be a speed up because this is a process that takes a while. Well, certain particular matters anyway for that case. So let's speed it up. Right, okay, so we've got the motherboard screws in, we've got the power supply in. Beware, cheap cases, screw hose might not align up perfectly, but it's fine. So, anyway, I showed my wife all these components. The only thing that surprised her was the power supply size, strange enough. So, next thing, let's start with some connectors. And I would use the words, I'll route the cables behind the plate, but I realise with this case it's not an option. The case itself is not got routing designed for thick cables. You either have that or you want to have that as a feature. On a £23 case, I expect no routing for cables. Well, you could. It wouldn't hurt, but it's the width. It's not so much that the designers didn't design it. Just didn't have enough width with it. I'm sure the designers would have preferred it, but I don't think they were given that option. Otherwise, they might get sent to the gulag. And for anyone who knows what I'm on about there, it's fine. Don't worry if you don't know what I'm on about. So, there's 24 power connector. Now, the reason why I'm going to put the DD drive in now is quite simply this. I need something to tidy these cables up at the top. Now, this might be a modular case here, but because I can't tidy up the cables, the easiest way to get rid of them occasionally is just by shoving a disk drive and shoving the cables right above it or something. In this case, come on kids, let me feed it, let me put it in, don't worry, don't be shy. Not like I'm doing something naughty here. Anyway, because what I can do with the... Oh my god, that got too small too. Never mind. Fine. Fine. I have this 24 power cable connected coming from that direction. It's fine. It'll be fine. But give me a screw that will work. That one. Potentially. So you say to yourself, why do computers decide, case manufacturers decide to do part toolless, part not toolless? Well, quite frankly, I'm not too bothered if it's toolless or not. I find that having plentiful screw holes can be beneficial for many other things other than harder work for the customer to actually just take a screwdriver, as long as the manufacturer, gives you plenty of spare screws. Right, okay, so that's that part done. We have obviously got that 24 power cable in the way, but there's no remedies for that one, I'm afraid. Right, I'm going to shove the RAM in. Yep, I'll shove the RAM in. Well, yeah, okay, I might do. So, follow your motherboard markings for where your RAM needs to be for dual channels and stuff like that. Don't always just take my word, saying it's every... So you'll have your first slot, and then your second slot, which isn't, and then your third slot, which is. Might sound crazy what I just said there. I might be waffling. I'm sure someone's going to correct me on that one. People always like to do a correction somewhere, but it's a true fact. So, what I need to do now is somehow mount one of my fans to the cooling of a water block, which means I need to find really long screws. And I have got them somewhere, but I don't know where. So I'm going to pause this while I go for a bag of screws and fun joy. Right, so after plenty of hunting around, I finally found the screws I needed in a improvisational manner, I will admit. Right, so turns out I'm having to use some hard drive screws, but not just any. Not something you'd normally get to see. Normally it's for hard drives with rubber grommets and stuff like that, but don't know what happened to originals, but never mind. So let's get our NZXT fans mounted on. As you can imagine, using a water block cooler here should be really interesting with airflow in this case. Because lucky enough for me, 140 watts of heat is just going to get blown out. With the graphic card I'm using one which has a blower on it, which blows most of the heat outside too. So all I need to worry about mainly with this computer case is air intake. And I'm just hoping both of these here, this and the graphic card, won't suck too much. Because, well, it couldn't be possibly a good thing to do, is not have enough air intake and more outtake. So apparently, I believe positive pressure is better. Well, that way, when I mean bags of screws, I mean bags of screws. Yeah, there's that. So, that's mounted. So, I'm going with a push-pull configuration. So, 2 cables here for the fans. This thing here has one for the motherboard to tell it that there's something going on, and the power for the pump, which is just simply a SATA cable. Originally it was something at some point. So let's find the best way to mount that. Right, computer, get here. Or if you wonder how that wall block gets connected to something, it's done with this bracket. And now we need 4 fan mount screws. Perfect. If you buy cases and you have loads of computer parts, keep the screws. You'd be surprised how handy one of them can be. Don't go to the hoarding case. Don't become a hoarder. But have enough of them. Oh, by the way, fan mounted there, 4 screws, which I pinched from the real one, but never mind. So I'm going to squeeze this down a bit. And oh boy, this is going to be a tight squeeze. Potentially also a bit too big. One cable, sliding in a way. This could be a problem. I don't think I'm doing a push-pull. No. One's not doing a push-pull. One's just going to have to do a push. Right, let's redesign this idea. Right, okay, so that's that chaos, mayhem and trouble all out of the way. I've managed to get it mounted, only just. I'm not quite sure how the side panel is going to latch onto here. I might have to break some metal off, because this is right up against the sides. But no push-pull configuration, and this fan's not exactly in the orientation I originally wanted it, because the cable is now gone away. But that's all little bugs will work out eventually, because as it turned out, I couldn't have the water pipes at the top where they would have been out of the way, so they're at the bottom. But lucky enough, not in the way for putting a graphics card in. I had to take the RAM out again. This is why I don't bother putting RAM in before, because the tubes themselves would be pushing into the first slot slightly. Might get away with that. I've attached the fan headers. Still got the SATA connected for the power of the pump still to do, and any other pieces to do. Let's actually check this RAM situation again. I might be putting it in prematurely again. Go my luck. And let's see if this pipe will be in the way. And yes, the pipe is in the way. So we're going to have to use a different channel. So I'm going to use channel system. I'm very sure some people are probably cringing. If you're wondering about thermal paste, I've not put thermal paste on yet. And the reason is because I wasn't quite sure if this was going to fit or not. But don't worry, most computers will not explode immediately if there's no thermal paste. This simply means that the temperature is a bit trashy, but at least you can still test it. Besides that, I still need to sort out these fan cables here, because it is a side panelled computer, so people will see the cable mess, and that cable mess is going to be more of a problem than anything else. Right. Okay, he says. Time to pull some of these brackets off. I'm going to have to pull quite a lot of them off actually. Oh no. Because this machine needs as much airflow as I can get. And airflow is not something this machine is going to be graciously good at. And lucky enough for me, I still have a couple of slots that will do the job just fine. And what I mean with that is, I've got some of these here, which are back plates with air holes in them. I've got a couple in black too, to suit the ones for that, because with this machine, more airflow the merrier. Put that capacity in the way. I'm sure Gigabyte's engineering department are cringing. I'm doing this right now. By the way, top tip, when you're handling cheap cases, beware of metal. You'd be surprised how easy it is just to get a cut off one. Right, strange enough, next thing, the very antiquated GPU. Very antiquated GPU. In this case, let's actually undo this screw first. The questionable, but why is it their screw? Just give people screws they're fine. They don't need silly little things like that. Right, so I can't use thumb screws because it'd be too high. Really? Oh yeah, you know when I was saying about quick releases? I've got some spares. Who would have thought? But we actually work. I have absolutely no clue which manufacturer these belong to, but it might actually work. Maybe not. I think the gap might be. Oh, wait a minute, that's fine. I can feel they do actually hit into the hole. Okay. It's a side plastic, that's why. Okay. No. Close. It's not close enough. Who would have thought? That would have been so funny if that would have matched up. Right. I need a load of these screws here. Oh, by the way, if you're building a computer together, you'll find out that there's certain particular types of screws. There's the ones for the motherboards, and then there's pretty much the ones for everything else. And then you have the cooling fan ones. Cooling fan ones are thick, very small head on them. The ones for PCI slots, as well as certain other things, are these here, which have a ridge bottom. No, that's flat. Let's pick. Yeah. Which have a bit of a ridged edge on them, but pretty much for everything else. Right, so let's shove this old GPU in here. Wow, it's so tiny. I don't need many. I'm going to put this point up because I can. Yeah. No. Yep. Yep. Highly undoubtful that will ever use this at a PCI slot. Alright, I'm going to put this one in. And I'm very sure that GTX is a 5, is a dual slot cooler. So I need 2 slots for it. So, the upper one, because of airflow for the process and everything, leave that one open. Oh, by the way, in a second, I'll show you the largest, most ridiculous thumb screw ever. As you know, typical thumb screw, you either have it in black like that, or in chrome like that, or for those who like to take the mickey, a thumb screw like that. Now that is a thumb screw. I could just about do a Crocodile Dundee impression with that one. Okay, that just happened. Because this computer is going to be used for Windows XP and Windows 10, and considering there's not many USB 3s on here, and I'm not quite confident that USB 3 on the motherboard itself works anymore. There was a little accident involving a short circuit with a USB thing. I think I'm going to involve something that I did a review of. The most awesome, most best USB 3 PCI Express card that money can buy. It wasn't exactly the cheapest, but it's just simply awesome. And it's this one here. Gold plated, as you can tell, 4 USBs and a USB-C on it. And no driver problems, no nothing with it. It's a really great card. Now, obviously, Windows XP is not going to do nothing with this, but because it's going to be a dual boot, I can guarantee that this here will at least work. And that's what I'm going to use. And might also be a good idea if I plan this one out properly. Actually, yeah. Plan this properly. That one will keep that as a spare, simply because this PCI card here will get replaced at some point soon. Very soon. We'll slot that one in, just like so. So we've got all the USB-C we'll ever need. That front motherboard header can get plugged into this one here. So I trust this one more than I do that other one. And when I take the crappy video card out, I'll put one of these in for color coordination. I don't have many of the Chrome versions of it. So, this here is probably the strangest time to start with the motherboard header cables, but we're going to do that anyway. Right, so next procedure, I have put that piece of metal which fell off back on. I've used ultra-sized bump screw, finally using it for something. I have got the spare space here for the dual slot GPU. I've got a spare metal plate to replace this PCI one here. I have got the IDE thing here, and I've got that black slot here just in case, but at the moment I'm going to install XP in Windows 10 via USB, so I don't need a disk drive just yet. Most of the games I'll do a workaround. So we're going to test the ventilation from the back as well as some air coming from the front. I've mounted on one rubbish hard drive on the front here. Just going to put the other screws in. While that I should probably get, and I mean, so far it doesn't exactly look horrendous. I am going to have to eventually sort out the cable mess, however. The cable mess will be a mess. In fact, indeed, the most troublesome part behind the whole lot is the cable mess. I don't particularly have many cables to spare. I've got a small X to this here. That will be used for the sound card. And I've got one which has just got a couple of SATAs, the PCI Express one, and I'm hoping I have more cables here somewhere. Yes, I have. So, got another Molex cable, that's great. Got another SATA one. Right, okay. I think I've got all the power cables I need. Or just about. Yeah, I'll use the words just about. I need another floppy one. That great FXI sound card has a terrible habit that it requires 2 floppy drive connector power cables, and I don't think I've got the spare one flying around anywhere particularly, which is annoying. Right, while I'm still shoving stuff inside this computer, let's just get this thing mounted in. I might have to work out a other solution to its power problem. Because this thing here requires power. Because for some reason it couldn't feed the power through there. And it's not like it needs a lot of power, it just needs some power, but for some stupid reason it requires its separate power cable. wasn't the best thought through idea. They could have done it through that. The power, by the way, is because there's actually quite a lot of chips on here. There's preamps and optical outs and all sorts of crazy stuff. But it'd just be cool just to be able to put an FXI sticker onto it and go, yeah, we have an FXI machine. An overpowered Windows XP FXI machine, I'll be honest. But yes. Let's see how we can mount this. Perfect. And these two. Excellent. So if you're wondering, my computer history. My first computer was a Pentium 1 with a 2 MB video card. Windows 8 98. Now I have worked with Windows 3.1. I am 34 years old, married with my daughter who occasionally pops by to say hi, which is nice of her. She's watching TV downstairs at the moment. Myself, I work as a care worker. Now, for one of the particular care working job companies that you could work for. One which I shall not particularly name. Hey. It's fine. My wife herself, she does occasionally do YouTube video. I won't explain the makeup over there. It's not mine, honestly. Honestly, it's not. Right, there's that. Let's do us two on. That's fine like that. Now, for extra hard drive space, because I'm using that one IDE hard drive there for Windows and Windows, I need a hard drive for games. I think I'll just pick this Western Digital Blue here. And we'll do the job fine. The great thing about this is I'll just transfer games onto it and then I'll slot it in and put 2 screws in. So that I'm not going to put in just yet, but I'll have the power cables and all the data cables all pre-set up for that. Right. Now, to the thing which I did need to think about is when I'm putting that sound card. At the moment, I couldn't put that ID card in here, even if I really wanted to. And this is something I completely forgot about. The sound card. And that cable, hopefully, is just long enough. Perfect. Dump the sound card right to the bottom. I know I forgot something. I forgot it's not PCI Express. It's not PCI X1. It is quite literally this here. And that will be awfully close then. Right. I'm going to have to do a little redesign here. I'm not going to get to those motherboard headers, so I'm going to have to stick the front of this case back on, shove them connectors on again. But luckily enough, it's not taken too long considering all. Right, okay. Well, anyway, front of the case mounted, looks perfectly fine from there. We'll just ignore the fact that the disk drive is just not going to get connected at this very, very moment in time. I couldn't connect it even if I wanted to. Should be about power reset, yeah. LED. Yeah, that one. Turns out that these cables from this case here are actually short. I can't feed them behind, which is tragic, really. I'll be honest, but we'll deal with that. HD audio, we'll deal with that in a minute. Front USBs. Where are they? There. Get these motherboard header cables all plugged in because at the moment I can't plug anything in, which is annoying. Oh, by the way, there's orientations for front USBs. But generally speaking, if you're building a computer together, there's going to be a great manuals to indicate where the connectors will go. So, power.
It's really hard to get to. There's just certain things you just can't do with computers. Especially a case like this here. And I don't understand why power supplies are at the bottom. So you put the motherboard and put the motherboard head connectors on, and then put your power supply in. It gives you space to get to these connectors. Asus do have a strange, funny solution to it, and occasionally you can buy them. Hard drive activity LED. So obviously, it does. There is silk screens on these things here to tell you which one's which, and do pay attention to positive and negative orientation on it. As crazy as it sounds. And there. This one, the other one was power LED. Yeah, positive and negative. Positive and negative. If you ever wonder why power LEDs are separated, is because once upon a time there was motherboards where there was a space in between them. And that's why those are separate. Like so. In fact, this motherboard here has the option of positive, negative, negative. Don't know. Don't know, mate. Right, nearly. This cable management is not going to be as good as I'd like. Not even close. But I will eventually figure out a way. But I don't think it's possible with this Casey's cable length. It turned out to be too short. Right, so we've got that. Sound card, I am going to have to put in a different slot than I originally wanted. And the VGA card here, I'll call it a VGA card because it's quite frankly an epoxy card. That will do the job temporarily. It will do for installing Windows XP, and you could, even with a GeForce 2 MX400, install Windows 10. Yeah, I know. I would have thought that would work. So we'll get that one screwed in. Right, the bottom is not as necessary as this next one. So I shall plug in now. I will reach those SATA connectors. Yeah, not actually that bad access wise. Oh yeah, if you're wondering about Creative Sound Card and why I'm picking one of these, is because Creative, a lot of games during the era of Windows XP had certain sound effects like EX and stuff like that, which don't really get done these days. I don't understand why. Sound qualities in games these days, they just have a base-wise good sound to it. They don't bother with extra processing behind it. And this extra connector here, I'm not going to bother putting to the front part yet because I've only got one floppy power connector at one. And that needs to go to the sound card because the sound card doesn't work if you don't have it plugged in. But those extra audio features, we'll have them done. This here, by the way, is that adapter from the sound card. And we'll show you plugged in like so. And this one we could route somewhere else because it's long enough. So yeah, the only thing that needs to be put in here is, well, where it says SSD here, we'll be putting a floppy hard drive in. Mass storage, cheap, don't need anything too special. What we need now is power cables. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then we'll do the test. PCI Express cable, lucky enough. All we need from this power supply. I don't think it was designed for SLI. Or as I'm going to call it, SLI. Nope. On an L shape. SATA cable. Have a look at power cables. Just do the job like so. And then once I've got the power cables in, I might actually just put this PC Express one in now. I can't see where to plug it in. Torch. By the way, building a computer and having the torch handy is kind of handy occasionally. Is that it? Yeah, can't be mistaken for anything else, can it? He says. Can't read the markings from it. And that cable's not plugged in properly. No, I'm not going to this power supply out. Let's find that one out. Why did that one stick out so much? It's alright, I'll find that one later. Right, let's start. Should be interesting. I'll be honest, with the size of this case here, I should probably put them in before. Especially the video card one, because that's going to be a nuisance. But never mind. When you build a computer, there is no such thing as it goes to plan. Ask Linus. Or J2 Cents still agree with me. When you're building a computer, nothing quite goes to plan. Right, where's one for the water cooler? And being honest, I'm very sure J2 Cents would say don't use a case that costs less than a graphic card. Well, actually, costs less than a lunch at Starbucks. Chances are it's not going to be a good case. Right, got a Molex power connector. Huh, you want to know something funny about this computer? This computer has 6 slots for Molex connectors, but it's only got two cables for SATA. It shows the time period of that power supply. Molexes were more important than SATAs. If you click it, so it should be okay. No, I don't think that particularly matters which one I'm going to shove it into. Perfect. Oh yeah, if you're wondering about this strange funny looking adapter cable, I made it simply because power supplies don't come with 2 floppy connector ones. fact, I don't even have a spare floppy for this one. I don't. I believe the main power supply I was using, I have got one on it for some strange reason. And in this case, I don't. You know what I was saying? I'll probably have plenty of space. Right. Well, putting it simple, bar rides, as long as I haven't done anything too catastrophically wrong, I should be fine. Put that cable in. So I've got one of these SATA cables which are going for the water cooler, one for the USB 3 card. The other SATA cable thing is going towards the, what do you call it? The hingme. Yeah, towards 2 hard drives. I'm going to have to search for some of the other things I'm going to need for this, because, well, I don't believe I kept all the cables for this power supply. That's going to be a nuisance now. Perfect. Okay, so that, by rights, should be a low-end, very low-end computer build for a Windows 10 machine. And this is also simultaneously a high-end build for a Windows XP machine. Obviously, I'm still missing the main graphics card, which is the main bummer here. Still need to sort out some power cable connector issues that I'm going to have, and will have. And yeah, and I will have this started up, and I'll be doing some benchmarks for the next video, which is the retro run video, where I'm not going to bore you to death with installing Windows XP and Windows 10. It will just take ages. So yes, I know this was a very long video, and some of you are going to be like, I can't be bothered watching it. But for those who did watch it, and I will speed up where I'm not talking, just to make this video not as long, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Do like and subscribe, and don't worry, you'll get to see this in a final build system. Well, finally finished. I'm going to start with installing Windows XP on a graphic card with 64 megabytes of VRAM and Windows 10. That's going to be fun. So yes, thank you very much, and I shall catch you next time. Cheerio.